Okay, so most of us know the Exodus story, right? It's about freedom, escaping slavery in Egypt. But what if that's only half the picture? What if the real point wasn't just about getting out of Egypt, but about discovering who God really is? Let's dive into this, because this story is way more dramatic and profound than just a simple escape plan. Everything, and I mean everything, kicks off with this single question. This isn't just some king refusing an order. It's a spiritual throwdown. You have a man who literally believes he's a god asking, who is this other god daring to tell me what to do? The rest of the book, all the plagues, all the drama, it's God's thunderous answer to that one question. So you see, the central conflict here isn't really Moses versus Pharaoh. It's bigger. It's a cosmic showdown. On one side, you have the most powerful man on the planet, a living God whose word is law. And on the other, the unseen, totally unknown God of a bunch of slaves. This whole thing is set up to answer one question. Who's really in charge here?
All right, let's talk about the part of the story that makes a lot of us a little uncomfortable. Did God harden Pharaoh's heart? It can sound like God is just some cosmic puppet master, forcing Pharaoh to be stubborn just to prove a point. But if you look at the original language, it paints a much, much more complex picture.
See, the text actually uses 3 different phrases for this. Sometimes it says God hardens Pharaoh's heart. Other times it says Pharaoh hardens his own heart. And sometimes it just says his heart was hard. Now, this isn't a contradiction. It's a process. It shows this dynamic where God acts, Pharaoh reacts, and that choice leads to a fixed state of being. It's like a reinforcing cycle. Dr. John Oswalt has this brilliant analogy. Think about a lazy student who just keeps putting off their homework. At first, it's a choice, but eventually, after doing it again and again, they get to a point where they don't just choose not to study, they kind of can't. Their habits have basically stolen their freedom to choose otherwise. That's the key here. God's command didn't make Pharaoh hard, it just exposed a hardness that a lifetime of pride and arrogance had already built. Pharaoh had simply lost the freedom to be generous. And that brings us to a really radical way of looking at this whole story. We usually think of freedom as the end goal, right? Freedom from oppression. But the book of Exodus flips that idea on its head. The Israelites were being freed for something, not just from it. Just look at the command Moses gives to Pharaoh. He says, "Let my people go so that they may hold a festival for me." The goal wasn't just about political freedom, it was about relationship. The entire point of being freed from serving Pharaoh was so they could be free for serving God. It was freedom with a purpose, to worship, to have a relationship. And this is where the story takes a really painful but absolutely critical turn. You'd think that hearing about this amazing liberation plan would make everyone celebrate, right? Well, the reality on the ground was the exact opposite. So Pharaoh doesn't just say no, he laughs at this God he's never heard of. And then he punishes the Israelites for it. He makes their lives even more miserable, forcing them to make the same number of bricks, but now without providing the straw. The promise of freedom leads directly to more suffering, and it just completely crushes people's hope. And the people, they just snap. They turn on Moses and Aaron with absolute fury. They don't see them as saviors anymore. They see them as guys who just painted a giant target on their backs. And in that moment of desperation, they would rather have the familiar pain of slavery than this terrifying, uncertain path to freedom. And this isn't just a crisis for the people, it's a crisis for Moses too. He goes back to God totally broken, and listen to what he asks. He's not just questioning the plan, he's questioning God's character. Why would you do this to them? Is this why you sent me, just to make everything a million times worse? It's just a raw, honest moment of doubt. God's response here is fascinating. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't say, "Oops, my bad." He basically says, "Watch this. Now you will see what I will really do." God allowed the situation to become completely hopeless, totally impossible, for a very specific reason, so that when deliverance finally came, absolutely no one could mistake who was responsible. They had to hit rock bottom to truly see who he was. So how does God begin this epic deliverance? He goes all the way back to the beginning. He finally and fully answers Pharaoh's defiant question. In response to Moses' despair, God doesn't just give him his name, Yahweh, his personal covenant name. He unpacks what that name actually means. First thing, Yahweh is the promise keeper. He tells Moses, "I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." He's connecting their nightmare right now to a promise he made centuries ago. He's saying, "I haven't forgotten. My timeline is a lot longer than yours, but my word is good." Second, Yahweh is the caring God. He isn't acting just because of some old contract. He says, I have heard their groaning. This is a God who feels, who is moved by the suffering of his people. He's acting out of empathy, not just obligation. Third, and this gets back to the whole purpose of freedom, Yahweh is a relational God. This is the end game. He says, I will take you as my own people and I will be your God. It's not just a rescue mission, it's an adoption. He is creating a family. And finally, Yahweh is the mighty hand. He promises to act with power. This is the direct, final, booming answer to Pharaoh's question. You want to know who I am? I am the one whose power makes yours look like absolutely nothing. So, what the Exodus teaches us really is that a deeper knowledge of God often comes packaged in difficulty. An easy escape wouldn't have revealed his character as a promise keeper, a caring father, or a mighty savior. The hardship itself was the stage for the revelation. And that leaves us with a pretty challenging question. If the goal isn't just an easy, comfortable life, but a deeper relationship with what's ultimately true, how does that change how we look at our own struggles?